Hey, internet friend, it's me, Bradley G, here in Friendly Fridley, and we've got another Wealthy Wednesday today. Today's Wednesday, like a W, just like that. And I've got my friend, Sean Hurdle. He's at a remote location because he's dealing with some stuff that's non-related to this. It's not real estate. Unless he's in there with the motorhome. I don't know. I'm going to go get Sean. Hang on a second. Let me, I'll be right back. Stand by. Hey, Shawnee, how you doing?
Doing very well this morning. Loving the music that leads me out of the green room again.
You like my music, do you? It gets you all fired up in the morning.
It must be royalty free.
It's just hooked up with this system, this StreamYard thing.
That's cool. Well, whoever created it, I'm sure that they were feeling the energy on that one. So that's cool. Yeah, like
I don't want to get in trouble.
Like you said, I'm coming to you from a remote location here. Obviously, the award-winning Smith Import Auto on Main Street in Hopkins.
Oh, I've never been, but I know exactly what you're talking about by that watchtower, the clock.
Yes, and it's beautiful outside. Lovely spring day here in Minnesota.
It's going to hit the 50s today.
Oh, that's good. So yeah, thanks for having me on again. I think this is an exciting topic and not one I know a ton about. So I may be speaking in some things I've heard. I mean, obviously, when it comes to real estate, from the consumer side, from the residential side, one of the first things that I've been learning more about and people are talking a lot about is how many houses are there available, right? Are there enough houses? And then how does that affect the different industries, the construction, the banking industry, the interest rates?
Well, the reason it's interesting to me is because it's a very wide vertical real estate. There's residential, commercial, and in the residential area, there's like home improvement and landscaping and a plethora of other elements and mortgage and hard money lenders and the real estate agent and the real estate brokerage. And then commercial is a whole nother area. Like a commercial roof is a lot different than a residential roof. Then there's the solar aspect of things. So that brings in a piece of it. So real estate to me has always been fascinating in that it's been around for a long time since we walked out of the cave. When we felt rain, we walked back in the cave for security. So I think real estate's a solid thing to play in. And it's there's a lot of wealth, financial wealth that's created with real estate where it's not so much owning your own home, but maybe owning an apartment or a duplex. You live in one side and rent out the other side.
Yes, exactly. And on that note, I think that what I always found very interesting, and I saw it a little bit in Southern California, and I've seen it here, but not as much, where you have like a business owner who owns, like, let's say a storefront, and they live above it. And so they're able to, maximize their capacity that way. That's something that I've always wanted to do. However, I'm learning that to use your business to buy a residential home is going to be a much higher property tax expense. And so kind of one of the things I'm looking for is just the best ways to optimize my investment. So my wife and I are looking to buy a home in the next 2 years. And there's so many different ways I want to go here, Brad. I didn't do a ton of homework for this one, but there's just a lot in my mind already. So I want to be careful what tangents I go on. But that's where we're at, my wife and I.
Well, it's not, this isn't about, we're not real estate experts or anything like that. It's just a discussion about wealth, because wealth can come from all sorts of different places. And like we mentioned in earlier episodes, it's not always financial wealth. It might be health and wealth. So, it's just a general conversation. And our disclaimer is we're not real estate experts. So if you listen to what we say and we give you some advice, don't take it with, literally.
Right.
It just makes sense. I mean, like I mentioned, the whole Maslow's hierarchy of needs is security is one of them, and you need a place. Even homeless people go under a bridge to put a roof over their head.
Right.
We need that kind of thing. And there's a lot of different things. You could do like a strip mall where now it's a matter of occupying it with merchants. So you got that income coming in. And because they're business owners, I think they're a little bit more responsible than a renter of an apartment, whereas a renter
Hmm.
can jump from apartment to apartment.
Right.
It's a fascinating industry to me, the whole concept of real estate. And then the other stuff we'd work with in the affiliate realm of things, there's a lot of software that real estate investors and brokers and agents, and they use that kind of stuff. There are affiliate programs for those softwares if you wanted to tap into the real estate industry. And usually someone in real estate, their mindset is longer term rather than here's $6, give me a coffee. It's I need to put money down. I need to be patient, closing, all that stuff. It's going to raise in value over the years. So I think people in the real estate world, they understand that things take time. Kind of like when you have a baby, you don't just doesn't just pop out. It takes time to grow.
Yeah, it's so fascinating because it's like, well, what type of businesses would be best for your building or something like that. You got me thinking in a lot of different areas here. I like what you said, framing this, hey, we're not experts. And I was going to ask you, is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, is certainty one of those needs as well?
I think it is. I don't know that it's higher than security.
Right.
I think it's definitely one of those things.
Right. And because that's that as a need is like, it's inherently a triggering point, right? It's like we're going to, things aren't certain. So we're going to constantly, be potentially affected by that. However, the certainty of your home and the security of your home, there's a tie in there. Because I was thinking a little bit about, things I've seen online where people will try to, be on the fringes and skirt society's rules, and they'll try to do squatting, which I've always found to be interesting. And so they may just occupy a home and, for that security, but it is so uncertain because they're trying to get around the legal ramifications of it.
Right.
Have you heard a lot about those opportunities that you'll see online where it's like, hey, you want to buy this piece of property in the desert in Nevada for $1,000? Have you seen any of that?
There is stuff like that, or auctions or foreclosures and things like that. Sometimes there's things where a person is about to be foreclosed on, and a real estate investor will come in and say, let me buy it so you don't get bad credit. We'll just get you into another spot and I'll work with you. You just give me a really, really good price on it. And they buy it and flip it and make money off it. Because sometimes people run on hard times and, they need some help, and they can't all of a sudden, they can't all of a sudden just buy their way out of it because they don't have the funds. So they have to foreclose and then go be homeless or something. And the bank takes it over, and the bank doesn't really want it. So I forgot what that's called, but it's basically funded by the investor. The investor buys it.
Right. And there's a lot of different things like that. There's also, where you can just go in and pay the back taxes on a property. But there's also something that's kind of predatory where people will go in, they'll get a house in some type of situation like that, and they will they'll convince one of the heirs to sell their portion, and that'll cause everybody else who's maybe even living on it. I can't remember what that's called, but that's a very interesting thing. So I've seen like some different documentaries on that.
I get it.
But what's interesting to me is with the shortage, especially here in Minnesota, I heard there's an 11,000 house shortage. This is what I've heard. And I recently, obviously I'm from Southern California, a couple of years after living here, I wanted a local number, right? I wanted to be able to network and connect with people with a local number. Not that Not that that changes where I'm from, right? And I started getting calls for someone named John who owns a house somewhere. And these real estate agents are calling because they're like, John, we need you to sell. My wife gets those calls and stuff like that. And so I wanted to play something that I don't know if I'm super clever, Brad.
Sure
Initially, I think I am. I think I'm pretty clever. Initially, people would call me just because I have a life insurance license in some state, and they're like, "Hey, we're recruiting," or I'll get calls for whatever. And so I used to just, once my phone started telling me it was a spam call, I would answer and hang up, and that seemed to help for a while. But then it doesn't help anymore. So here's what I started doing. I recorded on my other phone. I recorded, not the busy signal, but the recording you get when someone's number is not working anymore. I'll play it for you and see if you can hear it.
Okay. Recording.
Can you hear that?
The number you have reached is not your service. This is a recording.
And I'm hoping that triggers these systems to not call me anymore. But anyway,
that's another topic, but I like that kind of stuff. I remember years ago, I got tired of people calling me all the time. So I decided to I didn't do it, but I was going to get a 900 number and have them have to pay me to talk to me.
That's pretty funny.
You got guys trying to pitch you on stuff. And if you're going to pitch me on it, it's $9 $9 a minute.
It's so funny, but I guess back to what we're talking about. Let me tell you one of my dreams. So
okay.
when I first moved here, I was like, oh wow, there's a lot of agriculture here, and which is familiar for me in California. There's a lot of agriculture in California as well. So I connected with a guy, my friend Matt Bartholomew. He takes people to farms to volunteer, and so at the time I was working at the food group, and they have a farm. And so I was learning more about, oh, wow, maybe I could become a farmer, and that might help me save a couple bucks on my property and have a business as well and grow my own food, which is, I think, ideal for a lot of people. And I went to 14 farms in the summer of 2022 and saw all over the state, in Moorhead, Finland, Minnesota, Palisade, Minnesota, Northfield, all these places. And even some locally. And I learned one thing. I don't have what it takes to be a farmer. I learned that right away. It's a lot of work. And also there's a lot of red tape in accessing land. Sure. Right. And so one of my dreams, however, is to get a piece of property. I actually like the Fridley area where you're at, in that area. I like that part of are you in Anoka County or Hennepin? Anoka. I like that part of Anoka County, and get a piece of land. And ideally, this is my dream. This is what I pray for. Find something that was a fresh demo, right? They demoed the house that was there, but it still has the basement and the foundation is intact. And I want to put one of those boxable homes on it. I'm not sure if you've seen these things.
Like a container?
It's not a container. It's kind of prefab, and it unfolds. Like, as far as building wealth and investing, like, if this company goes public, I want to invest in them because
I've seen videos of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, as soon as I saw an ad on YouTube, I watched the whole freaking ad. That's a rarity, right? And so that is something in real estate that I find very curious, where it's like, hey, it's prefab. They just unfold it, and all you got to do is move your stuff in, basically, and connect your electrical or whatever. And to me, it seems like that might be a better investment for me, because if I'm going to spend $500,000 on a house and some property, maybe I'll save money by buying one of those boxables, and that's my idea. That's my dream.
Well, on the other previous topic we had with the whole thing about AI and all that, and how it's sort of taking over, I just got done watching a video about a 3D printed home, where it's concrete and it just goes along all the borders and it prints everything out where everything's going to be. And once you got it all drafted out, it saves like 40% on labor.
Yeah.
You don't need anybody. You just set the thing up and let it start squirting concrete into walls.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, it's that's the thing. I think that's the thing. If anybody's watching, if anybody's an expert on stacking grants and using your business to leverage this because I'm looking for deals. I'm looking for the best way to unlock wealth with real estate, which is what the title of this is. It's like, okay, if I grow enough food and I keep records and I sell it, right? I'm selling food. I'm selling microgreens, let's say, from my property. I do it for 3 years. Then in the state of Minnesota, I can get a farm number, which will unlock a lot of potential grant funds, right? And so that's like one idea I have. We can't flood the market with microgreens.
I wonder how that goes with zoning and things, whether the home is in a residential area or a commercial area, if you're running a business out of the home, like you said.
Oh, yeah.
Something.
Right.
I wonder how with zoning, if you live in your own business, can you do that?
It's true. It's like, technically, yes, because you can have an urban farm. You can get a farm number. But at the same time, like you said, in certain counties, a farm has different literal designations, right? It's on paper. And the same thing is true for all but one county in the state of Minnesota will allow like multiple families to live on a property. So for example, obviously we have duplexes, and I live in an HOA controlled townhome community, but what I'm talking about is like some of these remote areas, people want to set up, communes, and they want to set up these, and I think that's pretty cool. But there's only one county, but it's for a good reason, because they don't want someone to come in and develop the area, a large company. But I wish they would give certain exceptions for families that want to just live communally,
Well, there might be certain areas that are undesirable to certain people, but if it was set up right, it would become desirable. There's a place there used to be a really tiny little cabinet shop when I was a kid, and I noticed that the space was for sale, and they put up what they're calling business condos. And so they built a big business, and it's got a electric gate, and it's got these big garage doors and things in it, and it's got segments of, you put a little business in there, multiple businesses.
I love that.
There's that kind of thing. Maybe if it's in like a more of almost a rural area, and there's still some places like that, even in the small town of Fridley. There's still some areas.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. I heard about a city. I think I saw it on TPT or Public Access TV. They were talking about this town here in Minnesota, and I want to say it was like northeast of Moorhead somewhere, and they were giving away some really good incentives for people to move in there, and it was kind of fueled by one company that they needed the staff. The company needed staff. It was a big, maybe manufacturing, and they were already employing half the town, but they needed more people. So they were building these homes and kind of trying to attract people. So something like that would be pretty cool, where it's like, and that's a way to unlock wealth, is to have something that, like you said, in a small town, and then you're giving jobs to a bunch of people. You're bringing your tax dollars there. I think that'd be, people would welcome that.
That's an interesting thought, in that that the COVID thing made a lot of people work from home, and now there's the hybrid where you work a little bit from home and a little bit from the office. And I wonder how that's going to go with the zoning thing, because it's kind of residential, but it's kind of commercial. You got a residential area. However, it's also a co-op farm, a community farm, where you're all working on the farm and you sell the food to grocery stores. So it's a business residence.
Yeah, I like that, because with zoning, one of the first things that I learned, a little bit about my background. So I used to live in commercial buildings in downtown LA for like 8 years, different warehouses and storefronts. And we considered at different times to get a rezoning variance. Now, in a big city like LA, it's more just paperwork, but I think in a smaller town, smaller county, you have a lot more people who are vested in the community who are involved in making that decision. Like my buddy has a property in outside of Ypsilanti, Michigan, and his friend bought this big piece of property up against like a national preserve or something, and submitted a variance to allow him to chop it up and sell it to his friends. So that in a way they've been able to form their own little, community. But it was but the county or the city, they're not going to allow them to do any more variances to divide it up anymore. But I think it comes down to sometimes those variances to rezoning comes down to, hey, can we handle the waste, or can we pipe in the water? Where's the electricity going to come from? Some of those type of things are considerations.
I thought about that similar kind of thing. Like it's more how the thing is structured. Like if I bought a residential property and then it had, say, multiple bedrooms in it, or let's say I bought let's stick with the residential property. It's got a residential property, and then off to the side was a business. So there's no business in the residence, because you can't have a business in a residence. I mean, a big business. So the little collaborative thing is off to the side as a membership. And one of the perks of membership is to be able to have access to my house. As a friend, you're a collaborative member and you're a friend of mine. So you can come over to my house. In fact, I'll give you a key 24 hours a day. You can stop over. And what you're really doing is we're working on stuff as a business.
Right. I like that. I love that type of stuff, because for me, especially if we're fortunate enough to be loving what we're doing, if our work is actually brings joy to us and other people, then like it's kind of like you're just on all day, like all waking hours. You're just on. You're working. You're producing income, and being able to do it in community, collaborating is the dream for me.
You could have dark times too. Say that, the thing shuts down at 11 o'clock and doesn't open till 10 o'clock the next day or something, so that whoever's living there can get some rest.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can have a quiet space. You could even, soundproof it, so you could have a quiet space if you needed to, and everybody else can sit out there and work.
Yep.
So I think sometimes there's ways around things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's definitely true. There's a lot of times there is ways around things. It might just be changing the way you say it, what the verbiage is, or just kind of understanding the rules, and just kind of what I always say is I like to try to interpret the rules. Interpret the rules. That's not my saying. I can't actually. What is my saying? I can't remember one of my own mottos, Brad. I forgot it.
It'll come to you.
Oh, every rule is meant to be interpreted. Shoot, I'm forgetting that last word, but you know what I mean.
I used to say laws are made to be broken. It's kind of true.
Yeah. They're guardrails for us.
I like that. More boundaries or guidelines as opposed to rigidity.
Healthy boundaries. That's what it's all about. Definitely.
That was the way. Well, we've gone for 23 minutes here, buddy. Almost 24. That kind of flew by, didn't it?
That flew by. I hope people took some nuggets from here, learned a little bit about us, and a little bit about some opportunities that they hadn't thought of before. The only thing I want to mention too is Earth ships. Have you heard of the Earth ships?
I have. I'm not sure what it is, because I remember Earth homes that were like in the side of hills.
It's similar. It's similar. It's like a trend out of New Mexico, and they've been doing it for a long time. I think 25 years. And so I think you're on the right. But essentially, they'll have plant life in there. They'll have like well water, but they're creating this ecosystem within there, where they're reusing water, and they're typically built out of earth, and then they're partially submerged with a huge south-facing window, so you don't have to heat it in the summer, or heat it in the winter rather. You don't have to air conditioner it in the summer, and you're growing food inside there. And then the guy who pioneered this architect, he was never able, well, at least up until a couple of years ago, was never able to get the legal right to build them, to sell them, and stuff like that. There's two really good documentaries on it, and amazing story. I would love that. They're a little bit more commercialized now. You can kind of have someone build you one.
I suppose it's a little different. Like an architect or an engineer would come in and go, you know what? I don't know how to analyze this space. It's different. Where's the 2x4s? So
yeah, have you heard of cob? Have you heard of cob?
No.
Cob is like where people use like straw and mud to build, these structures. And I actually used to know a guy. I knew a guy very well. He would build stuff out of sandbags. So essentially, they use sandbags, different types of mixtures that would like cement. Where they have the coagulate, I think is the term, and then they would hold together. He would build like these dome shapes. And here's what's really fascinating: in the California fires that sadly just happened last year, I knew some people who lived on a ranch and not too far from LA, like near the Altadena area. And the only structure that survived in the whole neighborhood of one of these fires was a cob handmade like apartment, small apartment structure, like a studio apartment. Everything else was flattened. And I think similarly in some areas where they had like bad earthquakes and tsunamis and stuff, these are some of the only properties that still be standing after all the seismic activity. It makes sense though, because it's made out of earth and straw and whatnot and mud, that it would still be standing.
Somewhat, yeah. You never know if there's any stress cracks, but they could be fixed with some more mud.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, buddy, I'm going to sign this off. If you want to stick around, I don't know how far your car project is going on, but if you need to go, I can understand that. Other than that, I'm going to just shut this down and we will talk to you soon, bud. Thank you, Sean. There you have it. Our friend Sean Hurdle. The internet is fascinating that you can just do this stuff. I'm assuming he just probably did this through his phone, or maybe he's got his laptop with them, but wherever you got Wi-Fi, you can keep the ball rolling. So that's all I've got for you. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you for tuning in to Synergy Cafe, which is also called The Magic Brad Show, because I'm doing some more performing now, and I've got an online show that's dedicated to the magical arts. So peace, love, and happiness. Enjoy the rest of your day. Be good, be kind, be nice. See you. Bye. Wow.